As you know, this is part of the big programme for Derry City Strabane District Council. It is entitled Business Resilience, but there's a little bit of personal resilience that's mixed into this as well. And as I say, if I'm honest, I'll be a little bit selfish and say I'm looking for everybody to have a shift in their thinking today. It doesn't matter if you don't get all the exercises and if you don't fully complete them all, but at least if you get an essence of a shift in your thinking today, that will allow you to be able to take action. So if I'm looking for anything at all, it's a little bit of a shift in your thinking. What I do want to know is just very quickly, and we can do this because we've got a smaller numbers today, is maybe just unmute and just give me, 30, 40, 50 seconds, just your name and what you want to get out of this workshop. So actually, you jumped on first, so I might just go to you first. Just tell me what you want from this workshop.
Oh dear, I'm not quite sure.
That's okay.
Knowledge, I suppose.
Knowledge of what, Ursula?
I suppose for just the first one that comes up there is managing stress
Okay.
and pressure.
Okay.
That would probably be a massive achievement if I got any information on how to manage that better.
Okay, and when we come to the 5-step discovery process, part of it is called self-learning, and it's retraining the brain, and it's one of the most important activities and exercises that I learned to manage stress. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. So when we get to that point, I really want you to focus on what your self-learning is going to be post this workshop, and that helps manage the stress. But we're going to discuss good stress and bad stress as well. Okay, thank you, Ursula. Catherine?
Hi, guess I'm Catherine. I've just recently taken on a new role. I've actually just relocated to Ireland from New Zealand about 6 months ago, and obviously with COVID and everything, it's been fairly difficult to find some work, but I've just taken on a new management role, and huge advocate for personal growth. I typical hospitality person. I'm fairly, what's the word, emotionally driven by all sorts of environmental factors. And yes, I think for me, personal growth in this position will be very well received.
Okay. And can I ask, Catherine, are you very creative?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So when we come to do some of the exercises, particularly when we look at some of the businesses and controlling the controllables, and if this is a new management position, I'd like you to focus on, I'm going to give you 4 business activities that will be able for you. You'll be able to take those and apply them to what you're doing in this new management position. So that's exercise 3. I want you to focus on a little bit more.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Ruth is my colleague. So I don't know, Ruth, are you coming today to find something out new, different?
Yeah. Well, I will have to be delivering these online workshops. So part of it is working out how you do online workshops, because I've been on maternity for the last year. But also this is an area I'm actually really interested in, and kind of love to hear what you have to say about it, and hopefully learn a wee bit more as well. Okay, doing workshops is about having conversations with people. That's the way I do it, but everybody has a different way of doing it. But so hopefully you'll get something from it today. Okay. Siobhan, I'll move to you next. You're on mute. That's the best end of 2020, 2021. You're on mute.
Good morning. Sorry, schoolgirl error there. Good morning, everybody. I'm doing this workshop this morning because I think this year more than ever has tested everybody's resilience, my own included. I'm involved in delivery of education and training, and a lot of it is delivered on, not a lot of it, it has all been delivered online since October. And it's challenging, and it's challenging trying to get people engaged and involved. So I'm looking at this program, Leah, this morning in terms of developing my own personal resilience skills to keep going, to get us over the line, to get to the end of the academic year.
Okay, brilliant. Again, if it's for personal resilience we're looking for, learning is probably one of the key factors, and it'll make sense later on. Thank you, Siobhan, and it's brilliant to see you.
And you, thanks.
Right, Alex.
Hi, how's it going? I currently work full-time for the council, and I've just started a wee sideline, which I hope to grow. So I suppose I'm looking to get out of this to see how to manage balancing between working full-time and doing a sideline, and I suppose leaving work at work and not taking it back into the home week.
Okay, Okay, so say when we come to do the last exercise around creating the blueprint for the new business, that's important. And also how you would manage between, we're going to discuss something later on, which is called in the flow, which is a difference between positive stress and negative stress. And that in the flow is the part where you want to be in between your regular day job and then this new venture. So we'll come to that later on. Okay, just to alert you of that, Alex, thank you.
Thanks.
Tracy?
So my name's Tracy. I'm a business partner of Ursula, who's here also. And we've worked really hard throughout lockdown from the start. We've been super busy, but I just feel like we've hit a wall so many times of burnout and stress, and so many times where you think, God, I can't take, what's this all about? So it's almost like we're really successful, but we never feel like we're reaping the rewards of success because we're so tired and we just feel like we're working and working and working. So I just want to try and turn it around and try and remember why we did this and try and feel a wee bit of personal gain from it.
Okay, so a couple of things. One, controlling the controllables is really important, and we're going to look at the 3 C's of that later on. Focusing and working from a position of strength, and you're going to identify your strengths later on. Those 2 things are really important for you at this present moment in time. And also, time out is not about being weak. Time out is actually about being strong, because you really need to recharge your batteries. So don't think that you have to work 24/7. You just don't, and it's ineffective. So there's a couple of things that we'll look at later on, Tracy, that I think would probably really help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Brian?
So I suppose for me, the title of this is quite interesting because, I work in tourism. I have done for a long time, but I'm doing a PhD, which is looking at the impact of COVID and Brexit on the adventure tourism sector. So business resilience in general is a big element of that.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, so the title of the workshop is particularly relevant. So I'm coming with an open mind.
Okay, I've made an acronym out of COVID. I'm hoping you like it later on. Let's see. I'm really interested in that topic, Brian. So hopefully you'll be able to bring some of that to us today. Maybe share some of it. Yep. Thank you for that. Pauline?
Sorry, guys, I've got a bit of a wandering mouse this morning that won't click a button.
No problem.
The joys of technology, eh? Morning, everybody. Yes, what I suppose I'm a wee bit like Siobhan and Tracy. I work for a very small software company, and what we found over lockdown is that we're probably about 3 times as busy. But obviously, not got 3 times the amount of time in the day, so and actually starting to think about seeing the fruits of that busyness or whatever, and just trying to keep I suppose focus and concentration and on the priorities, if you know what I mean. So it's very hard to sort of get lost in it's very easy to get lost in your busyness, and when you are working small companies, like with so much more to do, and small team, etc., it's about keeping that focus and keeping the concentration in times where you're working remotely and not necessarily meeting your people as regularly face to face or whatever. And I suppose just keeping that focus on the priority, to see the fruits of the rewards, really,
Okay, I think what you're talking about there is self-management, which is a big element of this. And actually I'm really glad that you raised that, because self-management during times of transition, change, and in fact catastrophic times and things that are cataclysmic just is really, really important. So everybody will know in the past year, our own self-management has had to change dramatically for some people because the businesses have changed.
Yes.
So thank you for raising that, actually. So I am going to come back to that later on, self-management.
Okay, thanks, Leah. Thank you.
Okay, I think I've got everybody. If I haven't, raise your hand through the chat and I'll ask you, but I think I've gone to everybody that's actually currently in and on the workshop. Okay, so guys, we are going to look at what is resilience, personal and business. We're going to look at managing stress and the pressure and how to be effective. More importantly, we're going to look at how you deal with knockbacks and how you, through the discovery process, can deal with your knockbacks and then rebuild and stay focused and work from a position of strength. I personally do like plans, but I think that everybody needs to have a plan that's flexible and agile. So we're going to make 2 plans. One is for the self, the leader, and the other is for the business. And then we're going to talk about next steps. As I say, I want this to be as interactive as possible, but I'd love everybody to walk away with, development for you, the individual, the person that's leading the business or working in the business, and to identify your own personal strengths. And that gives you the strength to face the tasks ahead. Identify what the strengths and opportunities are for your business, and create a very practical roadmap. I know creativity is a part of planning, but it has to be sustainable. It has to be practical. But working from a renewed position of strength will give you an heightened motivation. It'll help you think with clarity and plan for the foreseeable future. And I think what's really important is once we understand what makes the person strong, we also have to understand what makes the business strong and how we can make it sustainable and how you can even grow and expand. And even if that's from adversity, sometimes that can actually be the best. Okay, so what I think you should leave with today is fresh determination for your business, personal resilience and business resilience, and a roadmap for the future. So let's look at what resilience is. Now, everybody will know this. It's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and from toughness. That's okay. Everyone knows that. But what's important is that resilience doesn't mean the person doesn't feel the intensity of the event or the problem. They still have anxiety. They still feel the emotions. The difference is that a resilient person has managed to find out a way of dealing with it more quickly than others. That has a massive element of emotional intelligence in it. So therefore, everybody has resilience. Everybody feels the anxiety to some degree or another. But you can learn to increase your resilience abilities. So don't think that resilient people are so confident that they don't feel it. They do. They actually might have acute anxiety at some point, but they have a way of dealing with it. And that's the most important thing. So no matter where you think you are on the spectrum of resilience, you can still manage to deal with it and find out good ways and quick ways of dealing with it more quickly than others. So that is a pure definition of resilience. So do a quick questionnaire for me just by looking on the screen. Now, optimism, solution orientated, and individual accountability. You're going to rate these on a scale of 1 to 10. Just look at the screen and answer for me, rating yourself from 1 to 10 on optimism is about seeing the glass half full, about finding a silver lining even in the darkest cloud. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself on that? 1 being not at all. So this is a baseline score. Don't want you to overthink this. I just want you to do it very quickly and say, I'm a 6 or a 7, whatever that might be. Okay. So that's optimism. Solution orientation, that's people who are highly resilient, tend to possess an efficient early warning system. So they see problems coming a long way off, and rather than allowing the anticipation to overwhelm them or cause anxiety, they start planning on how to avoid or eliminate the threat. Doesn't mean to say they don't feel it, they just start to plan more quickly. And be it that your planning is go for a walk, take a pen and a paper, talk to someone, whatever that is, you're starting to get into solution focus. So rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on that. Resilience and individual accountability is really important. You don't pass the buck. You're not sharing the blame. You're taking individual accountability. So people who demonstrate individual accountability tend to feel a strong sense of self-worth and self-regard, which gives them a belief in their own abilities. So again, rate yourself on that on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay. Happy enough now to move on? Okay, guys? Okay. Next one. We're looking at openness and flexibility, and we're looking at managing stress and anxiety. So resilient people are open-minded and they're flexible. Okay, they have the ability to tolerate and even to thrive on ambiguous situations. They tend to be good learners, so they learn from their success and they learn from their failures. And they learn from maybe their own, and also they're very observant of other people. So those people that tend to have a high self of emotional intelligence, they're very capable of, observing the landscape around them and observing people around them and seeing those people that are feeling confident and are being successful. Now, remember that confidence is a part of resilience, but confidence is an attitude. That's all it is. And an attitude is something that you can adopt and learn. So even if you're feeling from the perspective of your business that you're not feeling so confident, or what's in front of you, you're not feeling so confident, remember that that is just an attitude, and an attitude can be chosen and an attitude can be developed. So rate yourself on the scale of 1 to 10 for openness and flexibility. And then managing stress and anxiety. So stress is a force which, if it's not handled well, it can seriously distort you temporarily or permanently. Okay. And it has the ability to, I guess, just move this. Summary, sorry, 2 seconds. It has the ability then, if you don't deal effectively with the stress, it's a key characteristic then, if you do, of resilient people. Okay. So happy enough to move on, guys, if you've measured yourself all on a scale of 1 to 10 on that. Anybody have any queries or questions on that? No? Okay. Now, this is where I'm going to link EI and the link to success from Daniel Goleman. Okay. Now, emotional self-control is about delaying gratification and stifling the impulsiveness. And that underlies accomplishment of every sort. So if you have emotional intelligence, and when we come to look at this later on, when you can have control over what's happening in front of you, if you're managing those emotions, it means that your thinking is clear, and it means that you're not making rash decisions. Therefore, you're stifling and you are dealing with the impulsive reactions. So sometimes in the middle of a stressful situation, you'll make a decision that you look back and you think, why? Why did I do that? That actually made the whole situation worse. What you need to do is have self-awareness, recognize that you need to manage yourself more effectively, step away, think about the situation, and then come back with a plan. And that's in essence what we're going to do today when we do the rest of the exercises. That emotional self-control will underpin your clarity of thinking for you and your business. So people with well-developed emotional skills are also more likely to be content and effective in their lives because they master the habits of the mind that foster their own productivity. So people who can't marshal some control over their emotional life, they fight inner battles. So they're sabotaging their ability for focused work and clear thought because they're bandying between I'm good, I'm not so good, I can do it, I can't do it, I'm not sure, I think I'm sure. So there needs to be clarity of thinking. There needs to be self-management in order for you to be productive. Now, if you can manage to manage the emotions, your self-efficacious behavior increases. And self-efficacious behavior is really people's beliefs about their abilities. And that has a profound effect on their skills. So abilities and skills, they're not fixed properties. And there's a huge variability in how you perform. But people who have a sense of self-efficacy, which is your own belief about your own abilities and your own skills, they bounce back from failures because they know what their skills are and they know how to rely on them during times of pressure and stress. And as I'm saying this, and before we go in to look at some of what these skills might be for you, I want you to start thinking about, even from that resilience questionnaire, and before we move into the EIQ, what are the skills that I know that I possess? Okay. And when you think about that, you can start to think more strongly about your skills. And again, start to think about how I can bounce back from failures. So what will happen is you will approach these things in terms of how to handle them, rather than worrying about what can go wrong. Now, this is the 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence. Okay, so we can grow emotionally and become resilient by honing in on some of the skills that we will look at in the next page around self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and relationship management. But it follows in this line: if you become more self-aware, then you know your limitations. Okay, you understand how you can be emotionally self-aware, you can have accurate self-assessment, you can have self-confidence in yourself, which means that the management and the self-management is increased. So therefore your emotional self-control is good, you have transparency, you have adaptability, you have achievement orientation, you've got initiative, and you've got optimism. Okay, when you can manage yourself, you have better relationships, because you can show up, be present, you can help develop others, you can be shown as an inspirational leader, you can be a change catalyst, you can have influence, you can deal with conflict, which is an everyday part of life and an everyday part of business, and you can be good at teamwork and collaboration. When you've got those 3 quadrants and an element of strength running through those 3, you can scan your landscape, which is social awareness. That's organizational awareness and political awareness, and I mean internal politics. And you can have empathy towards yourself and towards others, which means that you can focus and you can deliver whatever that service orientation is. Now, I want you to look at the following page, and I'm going to bring it up on my screen. And I want you to take a couple of minutes out, and I want you to go to each, okay, and it's what I emailed out to you, but it's each of the pages. You're probably going to have your mute button off to say to me, Leah, move down the pages, because it's across 2 or 3 pages. But I want you to look at each of the top quadrants, and I want you to define your top emotional intelligence skills, just because you know that that's what you have. So I want you to name your top quadrant. Is it self-awareness, self-management, relationship management, or social awareness? I want you to name your top skills within that particular quadrant. And then the question is, and we can do this through a discussion, why is that useful for you, both personally and professionally? And why does that help you in your business? I'm going to bring up that on screen, and then I'll maybe give you a couple of examples so that you'll know what we're talking about. Okay, so can you see that screen in front of me? And this is the page where it's come up, which is Competency Framework for Creating Resilience, which has been emailed out to you this morning. Okay.
Yeah, I can see it, Leah, but you said that it had been emailed. Sorry, I haven't received that email, so okay. I can just work off this.
You can work off this. Okay, so what I'll do is, if everybody just wants to come off mute, so that if you feel that you're ready to move on, I'll wait that everybody, because if you don't have it in front of you, it's probably better that you say, yes, go ahead and move on. So the first one is looking at self-awareness. Okay, so I just want you to very quickly acknowledge what you're good at in that. So can you recognize how your emotions affect your performance? Are you aware of your own feelings? Are you aware of your triggers? Can you understand the implications of your own emotions? And do you have emotional insight? It's a yes or no. Okay, so just tick what you feel that you're good at.
So do you you tick every single one, whether you're good at them or not? You
can tick more than one, absolutely. But when we come back to do the summary, I want us to focus on which of these you're very good at, okay? So which of the quadrant will be your top quadrant? So you can definitely tick more than one as we're going through this, but we will want you to summarize later on, okay? Okay, so if everybody's done self-awareness, let's look at your accurate self-assessment. That's about knowing one's own inner resources and your abilities and your limitations. So are you aware of your own strengths and limitations? Are you open to feedback? Do you have a sense of humor about yourself, which is really critically important during times of transition and times of critical catastrophes, or even if they're minor to that? And do you solicit honest critique? Are you happy enough to receive that? And let's look at your self-confidence. Have a strong sense of one's self-worth and capabilities. So are you confident in your capability to do the job? Do you believe in yourself? Are you self-assured? And do you have a presence? Okay, gonna move on. So let's look at self-management. Okay. Are you keeping your disruptive emotions and impulses in check? So therefore, do you show restraint? Do you have patience? Do you respond calmly? And do you stay composed and positive?
They're all printed on.
Okay, and let's look at transparency. So are you maintaining integrity? And are you acting congruently with your values? So are you keeping your promises? Are you bringing up any ethical concerns if they are present in the business? Are you publicly admitting to mistakes? And are you acting on your values? And that's a very interesting topic because it does bring up vulnerability. So there's an element of vulnerability that is important when you are leading people or with a business. But at the same time, showing too much vulnerability or exposing too much of yourself can sometimes have a backlash. So it's about keeping that in balance. So let's look at your self-management on adaptability. So that's about your flexibility and handling change. Are you open to new ideas? Are you adapting to new situations? Are you handling unexpected demands? And are you adapting or are you changing strategy? And you have the ability to do that. Achievement orientation is about striving to improve or meeting a standard of excellence. So are you able to improve performance? Are you able to set challenging but doable goals? Are you anticipating the obstacles and are you taking calculated risks? So again, just tick which ones of those you feel you're very strong at. And on initiative, have you got the readiness to act on the opportunities? Are you addressing the current opportunities? Are you seeking information and researching about those? Are you making an extra effort? And are you initiating the action for the future? Optimism is about persistence, pursuing the goals despite the obstacles and setback. So do you have positive expectations? Are you optimistic about the future? That is resilient. Are you resilient and are you learning from setbacks? Okay, happy enough to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, so relationship management. Okay, this is really about your development of others, which because you've developed yourself, you have an enhanced ability to work and develop others. And that's why people who are good managers have done an awful lot of personal development work. So you sense others' development needs and you're bolstering their abilities. So you recognize strength, you're providing support, giving constructive feedback, and you're acting as a mentor. Are you good at inspirational leadership? So are you inspiring? Are you guiding individuals and groups? So do you lead by example? Don't do and ask of others what you won't do of yourselves. Are you stimulating the enthusiasm? Are you inspiring others? And are you communicating effectively a compelling vision? Part of relationship management is being a change catalyst, which is about initiating or managing change. So that defines a general need for change. Are you doing that? And are you acting to support change? Are you personally leading that, or are you championing the change? And influence is about having an impact on others, a positive influence and a positive impact. So you engage your audience, you anticipate the impact of actions or words. You're using indirect influence, which can come from leading by example more often than not. And you're developing behind the scenes. And the other two elements of this are conflict management. So you're negotiating and resolving conflicts. So you air disagreements in a way which is acceptable for all of the parties. You're maintaining objectivity because you're focused on the overarching end goal. You're addressing the conflict and you're orchestrating a win-win solution for all of the stakeholders, which can help with teamwork and working collaboratively, which is about working with others towards a shared goal, and you're creating group synergy and pursuing collective goals. So that's about cooperation, you're soliciting input, you're encouraging others, and you're building bonds. And last but not least, social awareness, which is really around organizational awareness, the landscape, the internal politics of the organization, whatever that might be. But in order to do that, you have to have a sense of empathy. That's for yourself and for others, but it's about sensing others' feelings and looking at the perspective and taking an active interest in their concerns. So you're listening, you're reading, and you're watching for the non-verbal cues. You're open to diversity and you're seeing others' perspectives. So the organizational awareness is about reading the group's emotional current and their power relationships within that. So you're understanding the informal structure, you're understanding the climate and the culture, you're understanding what the organizational internal politics are, and you're understanding some of those underlying issues. But to do all of that, it means that you've got service orientation. So you're anticipating, you're recognizing, and you're meeting the customers or your clients' needs. So you make yourself available for that. You're monitoring the satisfaction of that. You're taking personal responsibility and you're matching the customer's need. So based on that, I guess what we want to cover is how, I'll just go back to the PowerPoint. How do you feel your strengths are in that? So just make sure that the PowerPoint is back up, guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So I'd like a little bit of discussion on this if it's possible. And maybe somebody could share what's your top quadrant, what's your top skills within that quadrant, and why do you think that's useful for you both personally and professionally? Why does that help you in your business? I don't rush at me at once. I do like engagement and I do like interactivity. So
I'll give you.
Brilliant, thank you.
I'll humor you, as you say.
No problem. No, thank you, Catherine. Go ahead.
So probably my top quadrant would be the social awareness. Ironically enough, I work in hospitality, so there's not much surprise in that. Name the top skills within that quadrant. Well, definitely born with abundance of empathy, probably far too much. But reading customers and the environment that surrounds me is probably my strongest skill. that I can almost foresee if a situation is going wrong, and I can almost see that in advance of it happening. But in reverse, also when things are going really well, you can also sense that things are moving along rightly in the right direction. So that, I think, for me is really important. So personally,
yeah, I'm going to ask you a question. So that's your strength, and that's your top strength. Okay, so social awareness, political awareness, organizational awareness, and sensing and feeling the group, or actually from a helicopter perspective, Catherine, how you can view the whole hospitality industry at this present moment in time. You probably are clued into that. Okay, so the question is, how would that strength help you moving forward in the new role that you're going to do?
Profoundly, because I'm walking into a business that I don't know very much about. Well, no, that's not true. But as in, I've only been in the building once prior to starting to work this week. Personally, I feel like it helps in every aspect.
But specifically for this particular role that you're going into, how does it help you?
This is probably where not the confusion, but the difficulty comes in, because the emotional factors take over. My downside was that the emotional, that you then talk about self-management, is probably my biggest weakness.
Okay.
The ability to be able to step aside and go, okay, this is not a personal thing.
So what I want, we are going to do a personal balance sheet later on, and what you've identified, Catherine, a lot of people can resonate with. Okay. And I'll explain to you why. You've just identified what your best strength is. Mm-hmm. So when you're going into that new environment, you have to work from a position of strength. That's what a resilient person does. So you're going in saying, I can read this room, I can read the situation, I can read the emotions, and therefore I know how to handle it. What the element and the skill that you need to learn is a little bit of self-management, so that the emotions don't overbrim, don't spill over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So once you become aware of that, your stealth learning and your mental rehearsal that we will come on to later on through the 5-step discovery process, we'll quickly identify an I am statement for you. So I am able to handle this. I am able to cope with this, so that when you go into that mode, you've walked into the room, you're working from a position of strength, your self-confidence is here, your self-management, you're feeling it stepped, you're going to say something to yourself to bring that back up to par. Okay.
Brilliant.
So I don't want you to think that because there is a self-management there that it's going to make you weak. It's not. You're now aware of it, so therefore you're stronger.
Yeah.
Now remember that emotional intelligence and resilience is all about self-awareness. So now that you're aware of it, you can deal with it, but you've got the capability to learn. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Does anybody else want to share? One more.
I would say, Kat,
yes, I'll go. So Siobhan first, is that okay? And then Tracy, because I know Tracy. Okay, go ahead, Siobhan.
I would say, Leah, that I identify readily with our last contributor, and that's exactly, I'm in the same quadrant, and I can listen, take on the non-verbals, I can embrace all of the information that's maybe been fed back, either about training sessions or the organisation, but sometimes then, rather than being able to cope with it, I am looking at the situation where it's maybe something that's out of my control and I can't manage that.
Okay.
You know, I'm feeding it back to somebody else.
So does that mean that there's something that's out of your control and therefore that, okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask if there's a controlling the controllable, that there is a relationship within that other person or that other group or that other culture, even if it's a culture, can be changed to control that a little bit more?
I suppose it's each situation is different. You know, it depends whether it's external clients or full-time, you know, student groups. You know, there is some element that you can influence that, but a lot of times it's things that are totally beyond my control.
Okay, and if that's the case, then you can't control it. That's it. Don't focus on it. If it's seriously impacting, then you obviously need to stop and you need to regroup and you need to change tactic. But if there's something that you can't control, and you absolutely can't even control the culture, and you can't control the event, then you deal with yourself in that particular moment, and you only control yourself.
That's what I need the help on. It's that the ability to actually let go and say, right, I need to regroup and move on.
You're only in control of yourself, and you can influence. But if you absolutely cannot do that, and I still think no matter what's going on, you can still influence the person to the right or the left or the front of you, because the words and the presence and the calmness that you feel permeates.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes back to self-management. If you feel this is not going how it should do, then bring it back to you.
Okay.
That's it. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you. Tracy?
You know what? I'm the exact same. I don't know if it's a woman thing or what, but we
Yeah.
strive for, I can read a room, I can read a customer, I can see things coming. And it sometimes infuriates me whenever, you know, some of our other staff can't, and I feel like almost like a control freak. You're like flapping, like, why can nobody else sort this out? I can see it coming. So it's sometimes just, it's the self-control then, you know, these things happen. We strive for excellence and things happen. And I just feel that lack of self-control then. We're going, you know what, this is all right. This happens, and how do we deal with it? And that's it, really.
So I think you've hit on something that we've probably all experienced.
Yeah, I was just going to say that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spot on there, Tracy.
Yeah. It's a case of what we can't control, we get reactive within ourselves. We get frustrated and we get annoyed. Now, the question is, does that help us? The answer is no. However, it tells us that we're not comfortable. It tells us that we're not happy. And it tells us that if you're the person who always have to sort it out, then you want to be able to teach others to take individual accountability for them to be able to do it for themselves. Or if it is a group, or if it is a pandemic, for example, that we were in COVID, and you can't control that, the only thing that you control is your reaction to it and your thoughts and your perspective about it. So 3 things. If you can't get out of it, you therefore need to change. And if you can't change the situation, the only thing you can change is your attitude towards it. So if you can't get out of it and you can't change the event, the only thing you can change is your attitude. When you change the attitude, the perspective changes. When the perspective changes, the negative distress moves away and the positive eustress comes in. So in all elements, the only thing you can do and the last thing to do is to change your attitude. That makes sense?
Leah, can I just make a point there, or not even a point, but just ask, I always find that sometimes in a working environment and your own personal life, it can be very different in terms of how you're, applying some of the techniques and thoughts and suggestions that you're making there. Yeah. And I suppose if in a working environment, yes, there is that expectation that, you're all going to come along and toe the line and, do, do what it is, you take on board that, as an employee working for an organization, and that's what the expectation is. But when there is no expectation of, or control that you have over, personal situations, and I know you're kind of saying there about, your own personal resilience and business resilience, and how they sort of intertwine. But is there any sort of hints or tips there in terms of, yes, as Tracy says, we would all like if we were all the same way of thinking and be able to take on board and listen and, take others' opinions on board, and, that whole self-awareness of what your strengths are there, but out into them environments where you really can't control, or you really can't, you're trying to change everything that you do, and how to do and how to make that change. but when there's no change, when there's no difference on the other side, that's sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know if you understand
No,
what I
I
mean,
do.
and I
I
might be waffling
understand.
a wee bit
No, I
here,
do
but
understand perfectly. So,
okay.
So a couple of words. The first one is influence. So when you know for yourself what you want to do, but you know that the other people aren't doing it or can't even see it, what you need to do is you need to influence them. Now, in order to influence someone, you have to get into their model of the world. You have to see their world, their life, their perspective. Only when you do that are you at the same level and the same understanding. When you do that, you then show them through inspirational leadership and leading by example what can be achieved if they follow suit, and you teach and you coach and you influence persistently until that person feels better within themselves to then follow suit. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, and I do understand that. It's where you have two very different, I suppose, types of people. You know how you have. I'm sorry, I'm hoping I'm not sounding like whingy.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. That's probably relevant for a lot of people.
Well, it's where you have, like, I mean, I know you talk about, sort of like that confidence and self-awareness and your abilities and your strengths, and you see that, looking at the half glass full or the half glass empty situation, and I suppose it's where you're always dealing, well, not always dealing, but in these cases where it's complete negativity all the time, and a lot of the time it can be draining, and trying to get into that mindset where it's like, okay, if you're naturally a positive person and always seeing that glass as half full rather than half empty, and trying to influence that that sort of like mindset where the glass is always half empty, and trying to, I suppose, keep your own positivity through that, that negativity, if you know what I mean. And everything is always quite negative. I personally find when I deal with people like that, we all, I suppose, have different types of people in our lives or whatever. But I find that a real drain on myself. And then you bring, you start to come down yourself, really, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And it's keeping that attitude, that own personal attitude, and always having that.
So two things. One, you ask the person who is persistently negative what it is they want. And that has to link to the overarching goal. It's a simple question. What do you want? But it has to link to the overarching goal. So therefore, they need to feel as if they have a part in what the overall goal is. Now, if they're coming up with nothing, doesn't link to the goal, the question then is, are you a part of this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the second part is really important for you. You detach from the emotion of their negativity, because that obviously distresses or brings your motivation down. So you choose not to embrace what they are feeling. You choose only to manage yourself and to re-explain what the goal is, how you would like them, through what their particular goal is, to link it to the overarching goal before you've got a connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah.
So really important self-management, really important to detach from their emotions because it's not helpful. And it's also important to re-engage that person by asking them what they want and how is that linked to the overarching goal. They will be going through their own troubles. They will be going through their own thoughts.
Yeah.
They have to learn themselves. You can't teach it for them. They have to learn themselves how to be able to get out of that mindset. But if you are persistent with your positivity, and if you are persistent by leading by example, they will see the fruits of your labor. And therefore, by mirroring and by role modeling, you will show them that it's much better to be on that side of the fence.
Okay.
So it's that what I'm really saying is don't give up.
I'll try.
Thanks, Leah. And it is about mental rehearsal and daily practice of that every day.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Okay, no problem. So does everybody feel that they have an understanding as to one, what is your top quadrant and why is that good for you and your business? Yep. Okay, good stuff. So let's move on. Now that you've got that top strength, okay, remember that you'll always use that in any catastrophe, or even if it's minor. Just put that funny quib up in order to be able to kind of break the, sometimes we can get a little bit heavy when we're doing these personal development things, but at the end of the day, remember what your strength is, okay? Because that will always hone to you and work for you, and that is unique for you, okay? Now, let's go back to COVID. The world changed. It's a generational change. It was a lasting change. And I guess what I needed to do for myself, and remember, guys, we're working with businesses that have managed to really, really come out on top during COVID. But at the same time, I want you to think about that I've renamed it just for the purposes of what I think COVID has meant for a lot of businesses. And again, that's my way of reframing to help businesses that I work with. So I've called COVID for the acronym. It's about creating opportunities that are viable, that are on the internet and are deliverable, meaning that the business and the company that are in the middle of COVID can create something new. It's a new opportunity. It's definitely viable. Likely it's having to do with something that's on the internet or it's online and it's deliverable. Now, I want you to just pause for a second and work with me as I'm looking through some businesses that were very resilient. Now, I would love to be able to share with you some of the smaller businesses that we've worked with that have been extremely successful, and I'll maybe give you one of those, but can't go into too much detail, obviously, because of client protection and so forth. So what I've done is I've prepared you a couple of slides that will show you a couple of successful businesses. And I've given you what they have taken as a business resilient activity throughout COVID. So, for example, Nintendo has made the US equivalent of 2.4 billion in 2020, okay, which was 30% up from 2019, right? They released a game called Animal Crossing, which was dubbed the fastest selling game for the company's premier gaming console. And they sold 13 million copies of that in the first 6 weeks. That's a business resilience called timing. Right timing, right place. And they pushed it out in the first 6 weeks. Nike grew in China by 30%, all of their digital sales. All of their locations were reopened. They also donated, and they did what I call fulfilling needs, which is another business resilient activity. 30,000 pairs of shoes were designed for healthcare workers all over America. They donated 290,000 units to PPE. They cancelled their subscription fees and their online streaming library. They added more than 180 workouts, which were from 15 minutes up to 60. People were stuck at home. So therefore, they were fulfilling the needs of the people at home. So remember timing and remember fulfilling needs. Papa John's is just a flatbread sandwich delivery company. That's it. In April of 2020, they had 1 million new customers and their lapsed customers rejoined their website. The reason is they offered a no contact delivery. So the sales were DoorDash, you order it, it's left at your door, or Uber Eats or Postmates. So therefore they had solutions. Again, that's another business resilience activity. Clorox Company, this will be no surprise to anybody. This is one of America's leading suppliers of cleaning products, but their net earnings moved from 187 million in 2019 to 241 in 2020. A 500% increase in disinfectant is already being produced, which is 40 million more items in the first quarter of 2020 than what they had in 2019. So what are they doing? It's a business resilience activity. They're solving the problem or they're removing their fear. Again, we've got Novocyte. They were the ones that were making the prime design for the COVID diagnostic testing. So it's a less invasive mobile saliva test one. They developed a respiratory testing system which distinguished between flu or coronavirus. Again, business resilience, timing. The Ocado Group, which is an online grocer, found that people were obviously ordering larger orders and more tin products. So they stocked up on those. They made their click and collect or their deliveries easier to access, and it was quicker systems. So that was solutions. Netflix, as you can imagine, 15.8 million new subscribers worldwide. Ted Sarandos said that the world is being entertained through Netflix, and the creative community has coalesced around it in this moment of a global crisis. So effectively, he says we're winning the streaming war. What were they doing? Fulfilling needs. And then lastly, Zoom. So Zoom basically gave people a lifeline through COVID. There was 300 million users per day, which was up from 10 million since the start of 2020. And in the first quarter of 2020, that saw a double of revenue from the same time last year, which was $328, which included profits of 27 million in that quarter. So what were they doing? Business resilience, solving the problem and removing the fear. So these are the industries that are making use of the now. And when we come to do your business blueprint, one of the successes of any resilient business is making use of the now.
You seen your lady sit outside, the outside of council, you're not. Oh, well, here you are, and then they put you through the.
Damien, sorry, I missed that. Were you talking to us or was it? I think it might have been somebody else. Sorry, Damien. So we've got warehousing, we've got IT, we've got health and social care, we've got retail online shopping, and fitness. So more than 850,000 people downloaded the NHS Couch to 5K between March and the end of June in 2020. That represented a 92% increase over the same period of the last year. And obviously cleaning and hygiene companies. So these are companies that are resilient, they're making use of the now, and they are being transparent. So I'm going to ask you to take a quick break. I'm going to come back. It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to come back and I'm going to look at positive stress and negative stress. I'm going to look at how you handle that and how you come back from a setback. And I'm going to then move into the 5-step discovery process so that we can focus on what you can do to feel more resilient, to then make fresh plans for your business. I'm going to leave you with a thought. Everything that is in that EI quadrant is possible for you to learn. You just need to focus on it. And I'm going to show you after the break a technique to show you which of those ones you're going to pick, because it's really important for you to learn it, and how you're going to learn it and how you're going to practice it. And within about 2-3 weeks, you'll be good at it if you stick at it.
Brilliant.
We're going to look at the different types of stress. There's good stress and there's bad stress. Okay. When you're in positive stress, it's called eustress. Okay. And obviously when you're in negative stress, it's distress. The screen that you see in front of you shows you an upside down U. Okay. If you go to the bottom left-hand corner where cortisol, which is the hormone stress, is right to the very left-hand corner, and your performance is so low, that means that you're bored and you're doing nothing. So there's no stress and there's no performance. Okay. Now, you need a little bit of stress to start to push you up towards the top of the upside down U. When you get to the optimum point, which is here, okay, the very top of the upside down U, that's your optimum point, which is called in the flow. That's when you've got a good amount of positive stress, your performance is high, your cortisol is at a regular balance. And what you want to do is you don't want to push too further down into the negative stress. Okay, because that's when your performance becomes, I guess, thwarted and it's stopped. So you want to manage and get to a point where you're in the positive stress. Okay, so this upside down U describes the relationship between performance and the cortisol levels, the stress hormone. So when people are bored, as I've said, they're at the lower left-hand side of the U. A lot of us might have been there during COVID if we weren't fully engaged at work. But when people are fully absorbed, when they're at flow, they're at the top, they're at the optimum and at the top of the U. Okay. When they're overstressed, they're on the very right-hand side. And that's where the cortisol level is very high and also where performance is also very poor. So again, the objectivity is to be at the optimum point in the flow. And in order to find where your flow is at the best, you have to be an emotionally intelligent person. So you need to have high self-awareness to understand what your limitations are and what you're good at and where the triggers are coming. You then need to be able to manage yourself more effectively. When you're managing yourself more effectively, as I said, you have better relationships. When you have better relationships, you're able to influence and lead and guide other people better. Okay, so that's called optimum flow. Now, let's look at the 3 C's. And this was, Tracy had mentioned this earlier. Controlling the controllables is really important. So I want you to think about what's your top concern at the moment, okay? And just define what that top concern is. I want you then to find the root cause or causes of that concern, and I want you to jot that down. The next part is not to create the containment plan, because we're going to do it later on, or even look at the countermeasure, which again we're going to do later on. I want you to focus back on the strength that you identified earlier on. And I want you to ask yourself, if that person is strong, if that person is emotionally intelligent, if that person is resilient, how would they tackle that concern? I want you to have a revised and a fresh perspective on your own concern, working from a position of strength. And the only thing I want you to do is to feel differently about that. Don't overthink it. Just feel the emotion of feeling differently. And if that feeling is a positive feeling, it's a resilient feeling. And remember that resilience comes from a feeling which you can choose and you can activate and you can grow and expand. So don't underestimate the importance of what that feeling is. So I might just ask, has anybody and can anybody look at their concern from a different light and with a different feeling? I'm really only looking for a yes or a no. Ursula's smiling. Is that a good smile, Ursula?
I'm trying.
Can you feel a difference though if you think about the strengths that you have?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, that's all you need to do. That's it. That's a yes. If you can do that, when we come to do the mental rehearsal and you work on that every day, then it becomes possible to manage. Now, you also need to break things down into manageable bite-sized chunks.
Mm-hmm.
You also need to do what's doable in the day. You also need to be realistic, and you also need to share. When you're in burnout, stress, not enough time, don't know where I'm going, can't do this. When you're in that negativity, you need to be able to unleash and share that. And you also need to be open to constructive criticism, so to speak, to say, I watched you when you were handling that. Maybe there's another way for you to handle it. And if that person has empathy and is listening, then you can share and you can learn and grow as you go on together. So it's not to be done in isolation. That's really important. That makes sense, Ursula?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, does anybody else? I know Catherine was shaking her head there. Catherine, okay, you've got a concern. You can feel differently about it.
Sorry, multitasking here. No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, this is the 5-step discovery process. Now, I'm looking for that one brave person that I'm going to walk through what this 5 steps are, so that then each of us can go away and work on our own roadmap. So this is going to take about 5 to 10 minutes. You have a lovely smile on your face, Tracy. I'm wondering, you did this at the start. Are you going to jump out and say, I'll do it?
If you want to know what I'm honestly thinking,
Yeah.
don't ask me, because what you'll get is you'll probably get a mother of young children crying in a whole counselling session of how I'm not good at anything anymore. So no, absolutely
gosh.
don't ask
So
me.
you definitely don't want to do it?
No.
No problem. No problem. Well, then, so sit back and learn and just see what anybody else is coming up with. And by the way, we can all resonate with that. We've all done the young kids business. Yeah, it's not easy, but it's not insurmountable. Bite-sized chunks is probably really important. Okay, I'm looking for another brave person then. And I'm not saying you're not brave, Tracy. You're brave because you were honest.
Mhm.
Yeah, very brave. Thank you for that. Okay, who's going to jump forward?
Do you know what, Leah? I will, but I'm not sure what you'll get from me.
Sorry about that.
Guinea pig.
about
I
that.
will run with you, but yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay.
That's okay.
So as I'm going through this, okay, it's Pauling, isn't it, Pauling? Because it was just, yeah, okay, brilliant.
That's all right.
Then I want everybody else to be thinking about this as we're going through it. And I'm also going to bring up the different sheets that I would have sent out to you, okay? So, Pauling, based on what you wanted to achieve or to do, what is the ideal self? Describe that person for me and give me just 4 or 5 strengths of what you need for that ideal self.
Okay. Yes. I'll go back to some of the stuffs in the quadrants. Yeah. Well, it's the self-control. It's the self-management. Yes, being aware of this is where I think to myself, oh God, I wish I hadn't put my hand up. But it's the so the self-control, the self-management, the I suppose the feeling of achieving something, especially in these times, because again, it's the whole running about, so many things to do, not enough time. And I think the key there that you had said was about taking bite-sized chunks, to make sure that you're trying to pick. Well, I've got a list as long as my arm, but that some of them ticks are actually getting crossed off at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay, so what you've just described are the ideal self as someone who is managing themselves, who is taking things in bite-sized chunks, who is controlling the controllables, who has a high degree of self-management, and at the end of the day, they feel as if they're achieving something.
That's right. They're being successful through the whole of that delivery. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and when you imagine that you are like that every day, what does that feel like for you?
Well, it's kind of like it's a lot to try and live up to, all of that. But if you're doing it, yes, I like when you're there, it's kind of, you're achieving, you're actually doing what you're supposed to do,
And do you know what motivates you?
Results.
Okay. Okay. And you a person that likes to do lists, likes to tick them off, likes to talk about them?
I think I have to do them, yes, to obviously see, okay, I don't know, many days that I get to the end of the day and think to myself, what did I actually, I've been so busy, but it's like, what did I actually achieve today?
And can I ask, do you feel that you lack focus?
Well, normally I think it's the whole COVID thing, working from home, sort of like you're in your own, 4 walls kind of like scenario. It's just that kind of focus, I think you do miss the interaction, that physical interaction with people, but I do. And do you know what? It's even, it is even that focus, and the concentration. And I think I get so distracted, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
It's like I'll start one thing, and as I do one thing, I'm like, oh God, something else. It could be an email that comes in, and instead of focusing on that, that job that I have to do right now, I'll get distracted by the email and go off to, answering that and addressing that. So it is them bite-sized chunks and prioritizing, that I find quite difficult through the whole lockdown thing,
Okay, so you've described your ideal self, and you've also given me a little bit of discovery around the real self. Okay, so I want you to give me, from the EIQ list that we did, the strengths that you had from that. Call out maybe about the top 5 or 6 from those.
Okay, so looking at, yes, I'm aware, the emotional self-awareness, aware of the triggers. I'm aware of my strengths and my limits. I've got a sense of humor. Sorry, about
Yourself,
about myself. I believe in myself. Sometimes I'm looking at one that's jumping out at me, and I'm thinking to myself, sometimes when, the situation that I described earlier about the negative people and that, and I'm looking at that emotional self-control, that's something that I don't have a lot of patience with, so where, negativity and that is coming very strong, and constant pushbacks, and
but you're positive in yourself.
Yeah. Whenever someone's giving you that every reason not to do something, and you're trying to give them every reason to do something, it's then that I lose a bit of patience. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. So I'm going to summarize what you've said to me, and there's one thing that stands out for me. So if you imagine that part of these 5 steps is to recognize whom you need to be. Second thing is to recognize who your real self is. Okay, I'm going to go into your personal balance sheet. Okay, and when I pick out something which I think will create a shift change in your thinking, I'm then going to move into your roadmap. Okay, but I need you to identify, and as I'm doing this for you, I want everybody to be doing it for themselves. You're just thinking about it. Okay, so here's your ideal self: someone who is very controlled, disciplined, has self-management, has the feeling of achieving something every day. And most importantly, and this is your shift change, and I want you to get this feeling, this person loves achievement and loves results.
Yes.
Okay?
Hold
on to that, Pauline. The person's strengths to help them to do that is that they have a high degree of social or emotional self-awareness. They know their strengths and their limitations. They have a good sense of humor about themselves. So if it goes wrong, they can laugh about it.
Yep.
They definitely have a belief in themselves, and they have a positive mindset. Okay. Where this person has the opportunity to develop is to stop the distractions, because they have an emotional self-awareness to know that the distractions are there. They can become unfocused. So therefore, their sense of humor about themselves is to laugh and say, get back on it.
Yeah.
They sometimes lack self-control. They believe in themselves. So therefore, they can reframe, regroup, and go at it again. And where they feel they have no self-control, they can be positive about the whole plan and just be persistent. Now, that's your personal balance sheet. You see the feeling and the description of what I have given to you as the ideal self for moving forward. Can you feel that?
I can, absolutely.
Right.
And I think one of the things that you mentioned at the outset was that it's okay to actually take time away from it. And I think that's one thing that I'm realizing, it's like sometimes it's good to step off that merry-go-round, and just, reset things again,
So it's actually essential that you do that.
Yes.
So we are just like mobile phones. We need recharged.
Yes.
And if you don't do that, then you're not showing up. So therefore you can't achieve.
That's right. Yeah. No, indeed. And I've recognized that, and putting it into plan or whatever, so yes.
Once you've got that feeling, so this is for you, Pauline, and for everybody else, you need to get that feeling of working from a position of strength. Now I've just changed to the roadmap. Is it in front of you there?
Yep.
On the screen. Okay. This is really important, guys, as we're going through this. So try to do this yourself too. I'm going to give you time afterwards as well, but to reflect on it now. This is called knowing, doing, having. You have to look at this from having that feeling of being strong. Okay, so this is looking at this, Pauline, from your ideal self. Okay. Now, I want you to pick today's date is where we are now, 19th of April, 2021. I want you to pick a date in the future where you're going to realize your vision. That's when your end result has been achieved. And according to your mental image, it's ticked, and give me a date for that.
Okay. Is like, do you, when working with people, do you think that there should be a certain amount of date or a certain amount of time that should lapse on?
Yes. And the reason being is that individual accountability, ownership, and achievement is really important for resilience. So unless you have a date to measure yourself against,
yes,
you don't know that you've actually achieved it. And being proud of yourself and patting yourself on the back is another way of being more resilient.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I would give myself probably 8 weeks knowing what I have to do, and you know, sort of like what we, where we.
So 8 weeks is the 19th of June. Okay. So on the 19th of June, you're going to realize what it is that you've achieved, and I want you to tell me how you're going to feel when you've achieved it.
Okay. You want me to tell you now?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm sort of like, I always think you can never sort of explain how you feel until you're there. I'm a person that sort of like lives in the here and now, but what I would like to think and hope to think that I feel is pride, yes, and joy that I've got there, and actually, just have a lot more self-confidence in the ability to get there, you know, because I think the whole thing with COVID, yes, has left many of us actually thinking, my God, you know, you're maybe in places that you haven't been before, you know, and that's through no desire to go there, but the fact that you've actually achieved coming out the other side of it, I think it's
And can I just alert you to one of the things that you mentioned in your language? I live in the here and now. So if you're applying that could be a strength, and no doubt it is a strength, but if you're applying that to how you're going about your daily business, you won't be focused.
You cracked up on me there, Leah.
I'm saying that something in your language which was mentioning, I live in the here and now. That's a strength. However, your strength can also become your weakness if it's overused. If you're applying that to your daily attitude, your daily default attitude is how you go about your business, you're not focused on the overarching goal, which means that the motivation for the overarching goal can sometimes seem too far away to actually incite energy into the day. Does that make sense?
No, and it does, and I absolutely agree with you. It's more about the emotions. You know, I can't. It's about explaining an emotion until you actually feel it. That's what I mean. You know, it's like
so that's fine. Understand that. I think it's about feeling what the vision is going to give you.
Yes.
And incite motivation. Just like, you know, people that are running races or people that, you know, are, for example, Olympic champions, they visualize doing their particular activity to the point where they can run it in their head. So a second faster, you know, row harder, push the ball, whatever it is they need to do. That's part of mental rehearsal, which is a big element of this. Okay, so we'll get to that in a minute. I've got your date, 19th of June. What is it you have to know in order to do? So in order for you to reach your goal on the 19th of June, you might just give us a little bit as to what that looks like. What is it you have to know in order to do?
What do I have to know? Right. This is now, I have to know that I myself am doing the things that I know that I'm not doing today, if that makes sense. That's the only way I can describe it. So what I have to know is that I have addressed, yes, the areas that, you know, like that distraction, you know, that I'm not getting distracted anymore, that I'm focusing, you know, I've made a plan, and I am actually, you know, I have actually started to address it. I mean, I try and address it every single day. you know, by doing, some days are better than others, in terms of, yes, I done that today and I didn't get distracted, but I suppose what I need to know is that it's consistent, you know,
Okay.
that,
So what would a resilient person do every day when they know what they have to do?
Well, they would make the plan to,
Okay. And what does it feel? Go back to the feeling. What does it feel like, Pauline, when you achieve that every day?
Yeah, it feels great, because
Okay.
it's like the
So-
achievement has happened. Yeah.
So do you choose it or do you not choose it?
Do I what? Sorry.
Choose it or not choose it?
Oh, I choose it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So persistence was another word that you used.
Yeah.
So when you go into your daily regime or your daily activities,
Mm-hmm.
have somewhere in the back of your head or write it somewhere, persistence
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
equals achievement.
Yeah.
And every day when you're thinking, I'm unfocused, I don't have enough self-control, jump out of that and jump back into persistent focus.
Yeah.
And just bite-sized chunks. Remember, our brain only works in 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes bite-sized chunks. Do
Yeah.
something for 20 minutes. Give yourself 20 minutes to do it. That gets you halfway through it. Brilliant. Take a couple of breaks, as in 2 minutes, and then back at it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's your first thing. That's your knowing goals. You now know you need to keep yourself accountable for
Mhm.
persistence and focus every day.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Okay.
the deadline for that is now. The date for the
Yeah.
short-term note on that
No.
is the 19th of April.
Absolutely.
okay?
Yeah.
Right,
No, that's
brilliant.
absolutely fine. Yeah. Yep.
Now, so you're doing goals. What is it you have to do? You've already got the persistence. You've already got the motivation. You know that that's going to equal success. So what are the things that you know that you have to do in order to have? There are specific actions over the next couple of 8 weeks.
Okay. I feel like I'm sort of given the same answer, but it's about making a plan.
Right. So this,
yeah.
the plan, the activities of the plan,
Yes.
the doing goals.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. And we're going to make that plan.
Uh-huh.
So you need the plan. You need it paced out every day. It
Mhm.
needs to be practical. It needs to be reasonable, and it
Yeah.
needs to be achievable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, go back to the feeling again. So these are the goals that you have now achieved on the 19th of June.
Mm-hmm.
This forms part of your overall business goals. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And think about the week or 2 weeks before that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the date. So we're talking about, say, the 12th of June, 2021. I
Mhm.
want you to think about how you're going to feel just the week before you're actually coming to the end of the deadline. Given that you have been persistent every day, you've been focused, you've pat yourself on the back, you've taken the breaks, and you've done all of those activities. How does that feel?
Yeah, it feels great. It feels like you're more in control of you know, coming out the other end. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me go quickly to the 4th and the 5th step, which is really important. You now have, and when we make the goals,
Mm-hmm.
you will have the goals. Let me just go back into my PowerPoint, 2 seconds. Yep. You will have the goals now. And the 4th discovery about this is go back to the person that you decided was the ideal self in order to realize this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That person was emotionally strong, had self-control, self-management, and was an achiever. Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
To be that person every day, you need self-learning and you need mental rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
So the mental rehearsal comes first. The mental rehearsal is every day you get up and you say, I am.
Yeah.
And it's, I am an achiever. I am persistent. I am consistent. And then you go about acting that day.
Mm-hmm.
You then break it off and you do the same the following day until that becomes a well-formed habit.
Mm-hmm.
And that roughly takes about 2, 3, 4 weeks in order for that to really merge into just habits.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, what happens if you don't do that?
Well, you never actually get that person back again, I think. Yeah.
And what happens to your resilience?
Well, it gets very low, doesn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens to your personal resilience and your business resilience if you do stealth learning and mental rehearsal from the ideal self?
Well, sorry, what was the question again? What happens to
What
your...
happens to the personal resilience,
Mhm,
the business resilience,
mhm.
the plans, the activities when you work from a position of strength, i.e. the ideal person?
Well, they can only increase, really, and be a success. Yeah.
Okay. So the
Yeah.
question is, do you want to go back?
No. I don't think you would ever get anyone that would say, "Oh yes, please."
Yeah. So based on the fact that you don't want to go back, this is a personal choice
Yes,
to
absolutely.
become and just to adopt and adapt the strength that you already have to become more resilient. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Now, when you're going through this over the next 8 weeks, you need feedback. You
Mhm,
need to know when you're on track and when you're not on track.
mhm,
And therefore, you have to invite someone to hold you accountable.
mhm.
Okay? That makes sense?
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you do step 1, you've now got the ideal self. You
Mhm,
understand who you really are during the day and how you can go off kilter.
mhm,
You've got a personal balance sheet, which I read out to you. You've
mhm.
got a roadmap of
Yeah.
which we're going to look at some of the activities, but you understand what you have to know and do and how you need to approach that. And
Yeah.
you know how to keep yourself personally accountable every day
Yeah.
by mental rehearsal and stealth learning, and you get somebody to work with you and
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah.
It's as simple
Okay.
as that. That's how you become resilient.
Mhm.
Now,
Brilliant. Thank you. Mhm.
when I go to everyone else, can I ask that you take 5 minutes out to do your own roadmap and to think about what is it I have to know? What is it I have to do? And what are the dates that I'm going to hold myself accountable for? But when I go to the ideal person that needs to approach that, then who am I really? Where are the saboteurs? Where are the blockages that are stopping me from achieving this? And when you identify those, go back to working from your position of strength on the quadrants that I give you and approach your roadmap from those and that person. That's really important. Everybody has the ability to be resilient and everybody has the ability to reach their roadmap. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that before we come back and look at it again. I'm going to stay if anybody wants to discuss theirs with me. It's 11:45 and I've 2 more exercises out of this, so I do want to go quickly. Does everybody understand that?
Yeah.
Can you understand the simplicity of it as well?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. That's important. It is important that this is simple. This is not convoluted. It's easy. And you look at it as easy. The more effortless this is, the better.
Mhm.
So I might just go around everybody and check. Catherine, you okay? You can nod your head and then I can.
Yep.
Yep. Tracy? Yep.
I'm going to ask a question that's probably a bit stupid because it's
No,
probably just
no, not at all.
just everything you were talking through there. I can both see the problem and the solution. And I would say I can resonate with the solution, but my problem is now where it's like you're setting these goals every day, and as you know, the bar's always moving because of COVID and different restrictions. And is there I don't know what I'm trying to, I set those goals and you get there with the goals, but you never feel a sense of achievement because there's just another mountain to climb. That's what it's feeling. And is that just burnout? Is that just,
So first of all, your goals might be too high and may be unsustainable for the particular period of time that you're holding yourself accountable for them. They may be achievable in a longer time frame because there are other uncontrollables that are coming in to stop you from achieving those. Okay, So what you need to be is realistic and practical about what is achievable, and to be proud of yourself that you have achieved those, and also proud of yourself that you are clued in and savvy enough to understand what is achievable and what isn't. So the more that you can be realistic and practical in a time like COVID, where there are restrictions, and even if it's outside of COVID, Tracy, even if it's family restrictions, those are things that are always there. If you can say to yourself, I have the capability to learn, and I have the capability to make the right decisions. If part of those decisions is to leave something for another day, don't beat yourself up about that. You know that was the right decision to make, so therefore you're managing yourself.
Yeah. I sort of feel like just the goals are almost where the goals, I used to be content when you did the goal, you know, you set out your day's plan and you did the goals, and I was patient enough that if something had to be left or come back to or whatever, whereas now I feel very impatient and I feel very like, God, I have to do that again, or that isn't done right, or I just feel like I'm intolerant and impatient now.
And is that because you've moved your goalposts, or they've been moved for you?
I'd say both, because I am, as a personality defect, I'm quite a high achiever. I always feel like I want more, but when is enough enough? You know, and another part of me is like, Tracy, it's like I have two things in my head. I'm going like,
yeah. So when you
calm it down, your grand.
Well, your strength can become your weakness. So your strength is achievement.
Yeah.
But that, if it's overused, can become a weakness. So emotionally intelligent is about keeping it in balance. When that becomes out of balance, what you're trying to achieve, if it's not achievable, is actually causing you distress. You're either going to go into the bottom of the U on the left-hand corner because you're going to give up, or you're going to go to the far right-hand side of the U. And that U means that you are not performing either because you're trying to do too much. So you need to get it back into balance, and you need to go to the top of the U, and you need to be in flow. So if your strength is achievement, fantastic. Lucky you, actually, that is your strength. But keep it in balance, Tracy. Because if you go to this side of the U and you go to that side of the U, you're not achieving. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
So based on that, and based on the fact that it has to be in balance, then the balance for you and the ideal self is the person that can recognize that and stay balanced and not angry or fearful or annoyed or intolerant with yourself and other people, because all that's doing is pushing you down to the bottom of the U, which is non-productive. And yet you want to be productive. So actually you're standing in your own way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that's not easy to recognize, Tracy. It's, you know, we've all been there. It's not easy to recognize. But when you get this, so in your roadmap, when you get that every day, everything else will fall around it, in a sense that it will fall into place. It'll be the right place for you to do it. So if you imagine you're in flow every day, your ideal self is managing themselves every day. They're very resilient. Therefore, you can think clearly about the business. Therefore, you can do the things that you're supposed to do practically for the business, not impractically. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay. So once you've got an essence of this, okay, the next thing to look at is creating the blueprint for your business, which is this in front of it. So this is the main last activity, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to think about what is your problem? What's either the leader's problem or the company problem, okay? Now, everybody has to work on this from their ideal self, which is the resilient self, okay? And Catherine mentioned this, for example, earlier on. creativity is important for solutions. So I want you to write down, and only do this as a starting point. This is not a detailed exercise today. This has been emailed out to you, so you take it away later on for detail and for discussion with your trusted friend or your colleague. Think about your problem, think about the solution, and think about the approach that you're going to have. Now, do you remember the companies that I mentioned before? And I mentioned the business resilient activities that they did, which were, and I've written them down. So it was timing, it was solution focused, it was fulfilling a need, solving a problem, or removing a fear. When you come to look at your unique service or your value position or the changes that you want to make, all of those or one of those or two of those business resilience activities should form part of your USP. So you've got a problem, you've got a solution, you've got an approach, and you've got a USP. That USP is either timing, solution focused, solving a problem, removing a fear, or fulfilling a need. And that's about the service orientation, the person that's at the other end receiving something. Another aspect of your blueprint for success for your business is look to the competition who are doing the same as you. Be very aware of how people are reaching out to their customers now, the price and the whole experience that they're getting, particularly online. And then follow through on the things that you want to do to make that better for you and for the business. And then write down what your company's new strengths are and your existing strengths. And on reflection later on, when you get a chance to do this, write down what your EI learnings are for yourself and for the business and your summary of thoughts. That is a fulfillment plan, and it's a resilient fulfillment plan because it gives you an aspect of controlling the controllables in your business, and that is also a resilient activity. Don't control what is outside of your control. Focus on what you can control. Otherwise, it feels as if you're banging your head against a brick wall, and therefore you get frustrated, annoyed, just, you're not performing. And it is really important. And as was said, maybe even Tracy, and we'll all understand this, we need to be in the flow in order to be at the right productivity. If you're not every day, just take a step back and come back at it from your strengths that you've identified that you own yourself. Okay. Does everybody understand that blueprint in front of you? Yeah. Can you understand the pillars that support it, which is the timing, solution focused, fulfilling a need, solving a problem, or removing a fear? They're the pillars that support that make you stand out differently from your competition. Now, in order to lead by example, these are 7 steps, and all of these have behaviors in them which are resonant with resilient people. And now that you guys have experienced what your ideal self is and you can feel it, that feeling that I hope you walk away with today is a resilient feeling. That is resilience. Now, in order for you to help yourself and to teach others how to do that, you embrace and embody having a sense of confidence about yourself, which is an attitude, which is a sense of control and mastery of your body, your behavior, and your world. You have a sense of curiosity. So that's the sense about finding out things which are positive, maybe lead to pleasure. Intentionality is important. So the only thing that I asked for, very selfishly, if I'm honest, at the start of this workshop was I want people to leave with a shift in their thinking. That was my intention. So I wanted to make sure that I had the wish and the capacity to have an impact on you and that you would act up with persistence from this. So that's related to a sense of competence and being effective. So I know what it's like to be incompetent and ineffective and to move with intentionality to the other side. The self-control is something that you also embrace. So the ability to modulate and control your own actions in age-appropriate ways and a sense of inner control. You have relatedness, so the ability to engage with others on the sense of being understood and understanding others, which is really about listening. The capacity to communicate, the wish and the ability to verbally exchange your ideas, your feelings, and your concepts with others, and then cooperativeness. So the ability to balance one's own needs with those of others in the group of activity. If you start to embrace even 2 or 3 of these today, plus own your strengths, you will have a more productive day. You will have a more meaningful day because you're focused and you're disciplined. Now, this is something that is the basics for business resilience. COVID changed the world, and go back to my acronym, which was creating the opportunities for viable internet deliverables. Any business needs to have an aspect of looking at your web and have SEO optimization. You need to have your marketing emails, whether it's on MailChimp or you're doing it through WordPress or something else. You've got the right design, the right words, looking at timing, solution focus, fulfilling a need, solving a problem, and removing a fear. Those pillars are in there too in those emails, and get into your client's model of their world, which, see, because you're emotionally intelligent and you're empathetic, you can do. So you just do it from that perspective. Social media, use it and use it well. All the platforms are different, so make sure that you're using them appropriately. Do your follow through. Missed connections is a missed phone call. On social media, if you're not re-answering people, it's a missed phone call. Get your prospect lists and make those lists and do the R&D, and then just review and reflect and keep planning and replanning. That's your controlling your controllables as a minimum for your business. This I'm going to leave you with is just the activities that you need to do, your summary activities, and that's the actions you need to take to adapt to the challenges that you have. Okay, and I am emailing this PowerPoint out to you, so you'll have that. And I want you to just think. I've often found that, and Pauline mentioned this earlier, negative self-talk leads to negative feelings. Negative feelings leads to demotivation. Positive thoughts lead to positive feelings, leads to positive motivation, leads to achievement. Be very careful and be very aware of your own self-talk, and especially those around you. If you need to detach because it's negative, detach. It will impact your productivity. If you allow it. If you allow it is the very important words. So tell your story from the ideal self. That's the resilient person that you know you are because you've identified strengths, and continuously tell that story until it becomes a reality. Finally, your checklist. Take immediate steps to ensure that for your own personal and business control, that you are only controlling the controllables. Identify what your concerns are, write them down, but then look at them when you've identified your strengths. Only identify concerns and look at them as to how you're going to provide a solution for them when you're looking at it from a strength-based perspective. Identify what your roadmap is. Seek feedback along the way. Make sure someone is holding you accountable as well as yourself. Implement your blueprint and think, develop me, develop the business. And take the obvious ones for your business, which is the online, the marketing, the social media. Be different in that, but also be real and be genuine. Lead with resilience and integrity. Have empathy and understanding for yourself first and foremost. And then think of the pillars for your business: timing, resolution, removing the fears, solving a problem, etc. You can make it happen because you're all resilient people. So you've got self-awareness, you've got self-management, you've got relationship management, and you've got social awareness. Therefore, you are resilient. And it's as simple as that. What I want to do is just thank you for your time. And now we have a couple of minutes for questions and answers. So the floor is yours, guys. Come back to me with comments. I suppose my main question is, did you get what you needed?
Yeah, personally I did. Thank you very much, Leah. I found that very useful. So yeah, thanks a lot for that.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. That was Pauline, wasn't it? Okay.
It
Great,
was,
Pauline.
yes,
Thank
right,
you.
yeah.
And thank you for being so brave.
No, that's okay. And apologies, I'm on a low internet connection.
Right.
So if I stuck on my video, I wouldn't hear a thing really. So it wasn't for not wanting to show my face.
Not a problem. Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay.
Take care.
And yes, you will get a recording of this, guys, and you will get the
Brilliant.
PowerPoint presentation. Yep.
I'll just say thanks very much, Leah. It's probably something that I've always known myself, so I'm just feeling really motivated for a wee bit of change now, and just taking different steps and accepting sometimes that things are out of my hands. And for me, I think a lot of it is just turning off as well, because work-life balance has got so difficult, especially when we're all on computers and phones and social media. I look after a lot of social media, so it just feels like there's no downtime. And then with being a mother, there's a lot of guilt with that. So it's just dealing with all them emotions and accepting there, you can't change everything overnight. So I was going to rush back into work, but I'm not. I'm going to sit here and try and make some positive change.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that, Tracy. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just follow on from Tracy if that's okay, Leah. I'm Tracy's sister, and all them things that she mentioned, I feel the exact same emotion, so I do. So yeah, I found it very good, very informative. I just need to take time now and try to work out how to make everything better. And I do recognize that you can't eat an elephant all in the one go.
Yeah.
And I've probably got a little bit more patience. I hope Tracy doesn't find this offensive when I say that, about trying to achieve that. Whereas Tracy's extremely driven, so she is. Maybe it's because I'm a little bit older that I tend to do things at a slightly slower pace, not much slower. We both go very, very fast, and we're very high achievers. And then we expect the same from our staff, and I have to recognise that they're not the same as me.
But you can coach and lead and teach and train them.
Yes.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. And actually, the two of you probably dovetail very well. Where one might be too fast and the other might be coming up behind, you can just balance each other out, which is absolutely, I think it's beautiful. The two sisters can work together. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you
Thanks.
for that.
Leah, can I just come in there? It's
yes,
Siobhan
of course, Siobhan.
Leah, I thought that was enlightening, and it was enlightening for me at a very simple level whenever you said about you need to change your attitude. And I think I've shared with you in a former work role about a situation on a personal level, on a caring situation with family, and realizing I wasn't going to change the other people. I had to change my attitude, but I didn't apply it to the work.
Yeah.
I didn't apply it to the work role. And today I've been sitting there going, why did you not see the wood for the trees? It was so simplistic, but yet very enlightening. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Brilliant to see you again. I'm really glad that you were
Thank
here
you.
today. Yeah, brilliant.
You're looking great.
Thank you. Wash my face. Thanks, Siobhan.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Okay.
Just to say thanks too. I suppose for myself, I had two different perspectives on things that you're saying, especially, you work for council, there's a lot of red tape and there's things definitely outside of your control. And the frustration can get to me, because I'm highly motivated and optimistic, and then when expectations don't go as quick as they should or how I should see them, it does frustrate me, and then I can turn into the negative person, do you know what I mean, and whinge about council and this, that, and the other. So I think from my own perspective, that's probably what I've taken away from today, is to, don't let the things that I can't influence get to me, where I have been letting it get to me, to be honest. And then turn that on the flip side, the sideline I'm doing myself is that not to get frustrated when they're not going as quick as I want them to do, and take a step back and be more patient, because that's definitely something I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I can teach you nothing about resilience, Alex, because you've just summed it up perfectly. That's exactly what you need to do. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Super. Okay. That everybody? Catherine?
Yeah, I just was going to say there, thank you very much. It's nice to have a bit of a refresher. I think everybody has their own different things, but it's funny listening to Ursula talking about the sometimes you're on your page and you're so driven and you're so motivated and you can't understand why the people around you or below you are not on the same page. It's like, how can you not see this? But yeah, I think it's learning other people's expectations as well as your own.
I think one of the best things that I ever learned, and remember, we all go through these journeys, and we still have our own journeys to go through. We'll probably sometimes go back at them again. It's like cyclical.
Yeah.
One of the best things I learned was to get into the other person's model of the world. First and foremost, I need to see the world from their perspective to even understand how I can explain where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And once I actively listen to them and I see it from their perspective, then I know that there's something that I need them to do, which I can discuss with them because it benefits them as well.
One of the issues that I've had, and I don't know if it's fate or it's unlucky, but I tend to have employees that have worked for me over the years that tend not to be entirely truthful.
Mm-hmm.
And because I have so much empathy, my emotional drive ends up getting me not into trouble, but it's almost taken advantage of. And that's definitely a situation that I do not want to go back into.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's probably my biggest struggle of feeling, and I'm not always taken advantage of, but it's feeling, now that, what's the expression, once bitten, twice shy, that I'm almost more skeptical now to go, I don't believe a word you're saying. You have to prove.
Yeah. Can you read the body language?
Yeah.
You can read the body language. So when somebody's maybe not being 100% truthful.
Okay.
So there's a great Chinese proverb, which is trust everyone, but hold your cards back anyway. And that's just about self-protection.
Yeah.
So, you need to trust in order to be yourself, but you also need to hold a little bit of the cards back because your antennae needs to be up so that you don't get flattened.
Yeah. And that's what's happened historically. I've ended up flattened by. Yeah.
But an emotionally intelligent person, which is a resilient person, will understand to read the cues and not give 100%, but still be truthful to yourself.
Yeah, it's the truthful to the self part that I need to.
Well, but you also, as a manager, you also need to be able to do the job. So if that person's going to take too much of you because they're not being truthful, then they are damaging to the whole process. And therefore, you as a manager need to recognize that and handle them appropriately.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That I don't like doing.
I know, but that's opposing one of your values.
Yeah.
Like, don't lie to me because you wouldn't do it. I know.
Yeah, no, it's terrible.
Yeah, but in a manager's perspective, it's different. You approach it differently. Okay.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Appreciate your time.
I have really enjoyed myself, I have to say. So thank you so much. I've gone a little bit over time, but I hope you don't mind. Thank you for your participation and your engagement. Really appreciate it. And I'll send out the PowerPoint and the recording.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks
everybody.
guys. Enjoy your day.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.